The polyester tassel of my graduation cap swung against my cheek as I turned into our driveway. My hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel, not from excitement, but from the knowledge this moment represented. 4 years of double majors, 3.9 GPA, countless all-nighters. I'd done it all while working part-time jobs to cover expenses my father claimed weren't in the budget. Yet I felt hollow as I parked behind his gleaming silver SUV. The front door opened before I could reach for my keys. Dad stood on the porch, arms crossed over his chest, my stepmother Iris hovering just behind his shoulder. But what made my step falter was the pile beside them. 5 black garbage bags bulging with what appeared to be clothes, books, and the scattered pieces of my life. "Perfect timing," Dad said, his voice carrying across our manicured lawn where neighbors could hear. "We figured you'd be back from the ceremony by now." I climbed the steps slowly, still wearing my graduation gown. "What's happening?" "What's happening is you're 24 years old," he replied, gesturing toward the bags. "College is done. Time to stand on your own 2 feet." Iris nodded, her glossy burgundy hair catching the afternoon sun. "We've been more than generous, Thea. Most kids are out at 18. Thea, not Althea, my full name that my mother had given me. Iris had shortened it the day after their wedding, claiming my name was too formal for everyday use, just one of many small erasures over the years. "We need your room," Dad continued, checking his watch as if my eviction was just another appointment in his day. "We're making some lifestyle changes." I stared at the garbage bags. 5 bags. My entire childhood and young adult life reduced to less than what they'd discard during spring cleaning. "Your car still runs, right?" Dad nodded toward my rusted blue sedan, a hand-me-down from my uncle. "You'll want to load up before dark." The neighbors across the street had stopped pretending to garden. They were watching now, probably wondering why the girl in a graduation gown was staring at trash bags. I should have been devastated, should have begged or screamed or broken down. Instead, I felt something else entirely, a cool certainty washing through me. I carefully removed my cap and gown, folded them over my arm, and began loading the bags into my car. No tears, no arguments, just methodical movements. When I'd packed everything, I turned back to them. A slight smile formed on my lips, not of happiness, but of knowledge. Something in that smile made my father shift his weight, and Iris's hand tightened on his arm. "Well," I said softly, "thanks for letting me know where I stand." Dad's expression flickered. For just a moment, he looked uncertain. "You have a plan, right? Somewhere to go?" "I always have a plan," I replied, climbing into my car. That's one thing Mom made sure of. The mention of my mother made his jaw tighten. It always did. I drove away without looking back, the garbage bags rustling in my back seat like whispers of a childhood that had never really existed. What my father and Iris didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment since Valentine's Day, when I'd overheard them through the heating vent while I was studying for midterms. "Once she graduates, we finally get her out," Dad had said. "Lynn babied her enough." 3 more months, Iris had replied. "Then we can convert that room into our home gym. I've already picked out the equipment. 3 months' notice is more than most people get before their lives change forever." But I'd had another warning long before that, from the only person who'd ever truly looked out for me. Before I tell you what happened next, I need you to understand something important. Stories like mine happen every day, to people you might know. If my story resonates with you, hit subscribe so others can hear it too. Your likes and comments help these truths reach those who need to hear them most. Now, let me tell you who I really am, and how I learned to prepare for betrayal. My name is Althea Lynn Winters. My mother named me after her grandmother, saying the name meant healing in Greek, though I later learned it actually means with healing power. Mom believed names should carry meaning. It should give their bearers something to live up to. She was a high school literature teacher with a passion for mythology and secondhand bookstores. She collected stories the way other people collect souvenirs, believing narrative was the most powerful force in the universe. "Stories shape how we see ourselves," she'd tell me. "Choose your story carefully, Althea. Don't let anyone else write it for you." Mom was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer when I was 17. The disease moved quickly, as if making up for lost time. She spent her final months preparing me for a world without her Seth, teaching me practical skills like how to change a tire and file taxes, but also how to read people, how to identify those who might hurt me. Your father has always been charming, she'd whispered one evening from her hospital bed. But charm can mask emptiness. Watch how people treat others when they have nothing to gain. That's the true measure. 2 weeks before she died, Mom asked her lawyer to visit. I was sent to the cafeteria during their meeting. Later, she held my hand and told me she'd made arrangements. Not much, she admitted, but something to help you stand on your own when the time comes. After she passed, Dad moved on with alarming speed. Within 6 months, he'd met Iris, a real estate agent who'd helped him list Mom's reading cottage, a small lake property Mom had inherited from her parents. By my 18th birthday, they were married. By my 19th, most traces of Mom had disappeared from our home. Her books donated, her garden replanted, her photographs moved to albums in the attic. I retreated into academics, earning scholarships that covered most of my tuition. Dad claimed Mom's life insurance had barely covered the funeral costs, and that her teacher's pension was minimal. The college fund they'd supposedly been building throughout my childhood had been depleted by medical bills. I never saw documentation of any of this. But what teenager thinks to ask? I lived in dorms during the school year and came home for summers, watching as my childhood home gradually transformed. My bedroom remained mine only because I used it 3 months a year, though Iris frequently commented on what a lovely home office it would make. During my senior year, I received a letter from a law firm I didn't recognize. Inside was a simple note. As per Lynn Winter's instructions, please contact our office on your 24th birthday or upon your college graduation, whichever comes first. I called the next day. A kind-voiced attorney explained that my mother had established a small trust that would mature when I graduated or turned 24. Not enough to live luxuriously, but sufficient for a security deposit and 3 months' rent on a modest apartment. Your mother was very specific, the lawyer explained. She wanted you to have options after college. That's when pieces began falling into place. Why Dad had been so insistent I live at home during college to save money. Why he'd discouraged me from taking a semester abroad. Control wasn't just about affection. It was financial. When I overheard their Valentine's Day conversation, I didn't panic. Instead, I began quietly preparing. I found a small one-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood 20 minutes from campus. I arranged for utilities, bought secondhand furniture from graduating seniors, and secured a position as a junior analyst at a local firm that would start 2 weeks after graduation. My mother's trust covered exactly what she'd intended: security deposit, first and last month's rent, and enough to keep me afloat until my first few paychecks arrived, as if she'd calculated precisely how much breathing room I would need. The day after graduation, while Dad and Iris probably expected me to be calling relatives begging for a couch to sleep on, I was arranging my meager belongings in my new apartment. I hung my diploma on the wall, placed Mom's photo on my nightstand, and slept on my own terms for the first time in years. The first message from Dad came 3 days later. Where are you staying? No concern, just curiosity. I didn't answer. A week passed. Althea, this silent treatment is childish. Call me. 2 weeks. Your mail is piling up. Should I forward it somewhere? 1 month. We need to discuss your student loan repayment plan. There were no student loans. My scholarships, part-time jobs, and a small grant from Mom's teachers' union had covered everything. Another lie exposed. As spring melted into summer, my new life took shape. My job wasn't glamorous, but my supervisor appreciated my attention to detail. I made friends with neighbors in my building. I joined a book club that met at the local library, choosing titles my mother would have loved. Meanwhile, the messages from Dad grew increasingly frequent. By month 3, they'd shifted from irritated to concerned. Just let us know you're safe. That's all we're asking. I watched from a distance through social media, saw their posts about converting my bedroom into a home gym, noticed when Iris's smiling photos at her real estate office stopped appearing, observed when their planned Bermuda trip was quietly removed from their shared calendar that I still had access to on my phone. By month 5, the tone had changed completely. We need to talk about some financial matters. Call me ASAP. By month 6. Althea, please. Things are complicated right now. We could use your help. I never responded, but I didn't block the number either. Each message was a pebble building a mountain of evidence that something was crumbling in their lives. I felt no joy in their distress, only a detached curiosity. What could have possibly gone wrong in their perfectly planned life? Month 7 brought the 75th message. Emergency! The bank is taking action. Call immediately. That same day, I received another letter from my mother's lawyer. Final distribution of Lynn Winter's estate, the envelope read. Inside was a single USB drive and a handwritten note in my mother's familiar script. For when you're ready to understand, use this knowledge wisely. With healing power, Mom. I plugged the drive into my laptop that evening, hands trembling. The screen filled with folders labeled by year, going back to before I was born. Financial records, property deeds, email exchanges, bank statements, and a video file simply titled For Althea. My mother's face appeared on screen, much healthier than in my final memories of her. She must have recorded this months before her diagnosis. Althea, my sweet girl, she began. If you're watching this, then you've graduated college or turned 24, and you're beginning your independent life. I'm so proud of you. There are things you need to know about your father, things I should have told you sooner. 3 hours later, I sat in stunned silence, the pieces of a puzzle I hadn't known existed falling perfectly into place. I finally understood what had been happening these past 7 months, and exactly what I needed to do next. I picked up my phone and typed my very first response to my father. I'll come by tomorrow evening. We can talk then. His reply was immediate. Thank God. 7 p.m., I'll be there. I texted back. That night, I barely slept. Not from anxiety, but from a strange, calm certainty. Tomorrow would change everything. The question wasn't whether I was ready, but whether they were. I parked across the street from my childhood home at exactly 7 p.m. 3 minutes late, enough to establish that I was operating on my own terms. The house looked different somehow. The lawn, usually manicured to perfection, showed patches of neglect. The hedges needed trimming. The bright outdoor lights that Iris had installed were dark. I sat watching for a moment, remembering the video I'd seen last night. My mother, healthier than in my final memories of her, had looked directly into the camera with quiet determination. Your father was always ambitious, Althea, she'd said. But ambition untethered from ethics becomes something dangerous. When we married, I believed his drive would build us a beautiful life. I didn't understand that for Devon, nothing is ever enough. I took a deep breath and walked to the door. Before I could knock, it swung open. Dad stood there, stubble on his usually clean-shaven face, dark circles under his eyes. Thea, he exhaled. Thank God. The foyer smelled different. No trace of Iris's signature candles or reed diffusers. The artwork had been rearranged, expensive pieces missing from their usual spots. Where's Iris? I asked, remaining near the door. She'll be down in a minute. He gestured toward the living room. Come sit. Can I get you something to drink? No, thank you. The living room showed subtle signs of decline. The Italian leather sofa had been replaced with something less expensive. The crystal decanter set was gone from the bar cart. Dad sat across from me, leaning forward. I'm sorry about graduation day. We could have handled that better. I said nothing. It's been a difficult few months, he continued, running a hand through hair that needed cutting. Iris's real estate business hit some complications. The market turned, and then there's been this misunderstanding with the bank. Footsteps on the stairs announced Iris. She'd lost weight, her designer outfit replaced by simple jeans and a blouse. The diamond tennis bracelet that had rarely left her wrist was noticeably absent. Althea, she said, forcing a smile. You look well. I am well, I replied simply. An uncomfortable silence filled the room until Dad cleared his throat. We've been trying to reach you because we're in a temporary financial situation, he began. There's been a misunderstanding with some accounts. Assets have been frozen pending an investigation. What kind of investigation? I asked, though I already knew. Just bureaucratic nonsense, he said dismissively. But it's created a cash flow problem. We may need to liquidate some investments. And there's the matter of your mother's reading cottage. I raised an eyebrow. The cottage you sold 5 years ago? His expression flickered. Well, technically yes, but there's been some question about the proceeds. What Dad's trying to say, Iris interjected, is that we need access to your trust fund, just temporarily, to clear up this misunderstanding. I tilted my head. What trust fund would that be? Dad shifted uncomfortably. The one Lynn set up for you. The lawyer contacted us when they couldn't reach you. The first outright lie of the evening. I nodded slowly. That money was meant for your education, he continued. But since your scholarships covered most expenses, it's just sitting there. We'd pay it back, of course, with interest. I studied them both. My father's forced casualness, Iris's nervous fingers twisting her wedding ring. Tell me about the mortgage, I said quietly. Dad's face paled slightly. What about it? The foreclosure notice. Is that part of the misunderstanding, too? Iris shot him a look. He hadn't told her I knew about that. How did you? He began. I know everything, Dad. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. About the second mortgage you took out using Mom's forged signature 3 months before she died. About how you transferred her life insurance payout, all $350,000 of it, into offshore accounts. About the college fund you emptied when I was 16. His face hardened. You've been digging through private financial matters? That's completely inappropriate. Mom did the digging, I replied. I'm just following the map she left. That stopped him cold. Iris looked between us, confusion evident on her face. What is she talking about, Devon? I handed her a document from my folder. This is a forensic accounting report my mother commissioned before she died. It details how my father systematically drained their joint assets and her inheritance, transferring everything into accounts you both control. Iris scanned the paper, her expression shifting from confusion to something harder. These transactions were investments in my business. Devon said Lynn approved them. Mom was in hospice when most of these transfers happened, I said quietly. She could barely sign her name, let alone authorize complex financial transactions. Dad stood abruptly. Enough. I don't know what kind of fantasy your mother fed you, but our financial matters are none of your business. If you're not here to help, then why did you come? I remained seated, calm. I came because you sent 75 increasingly desperate messages, because you said there was an emergency. Was that a lie too? His jaw worked silently. Iris had gone very still holding the document. How bad is it really? I asked. The foreclosure, I mean. After a long moment, Dad collapsed back into his chair. 30 days, he muttered. We have 30 days to come up with $176,000, or the house goes to auction. The business is underwater too, Iris added, her voice hollow. My investors pulled out after the audit. What audit? Dad snapped. Iris flinched. The one triggered by those anonymous documentation submissions. I told you about this weeks ago. They stared at each other, the fractures in their relationship suddenly visible. I watched, feeling nothing but a strange detachment. So, I said eventually, you need my trust fund money to save yourselves from financial ruin. Hope flickered across Dad's face. It would just be temporary. Once this misunderstanding is cleared up, there is no misunderstanding. I cut in. The accounts were frozen because there's evidence of fraud. The mortgage company is foreclosing because you've been falsifying income documentation. The tax authorities are investigating because you've been reporting losses that don't exist. The color drained from his face. How could you possibly know all that? Because I've spent 7 months connecting the dots Mom left for me, I replied. She knew what you were doing. She just ran out of time to stop you. Dad's expression turned calculating. Whatever you think you know, you're a 24-year-old with an undergraduate degree. Do you really think anyone will take your word over mine? They already have, I said quietly. That's why your accounts are frozen. For the first time, real fear flickered in his eyes. Iris stood suddenly. You did this, she whispered. The anonymous tips, the documentation submissions. That was you? I met her gaze steadily. Not directly, but yes, the information came from me. You've destroyed everything, Dad shouted, standing now. Years of work, our reputation, our future, all because you couldn't handle a little push toward independence? The irony was so thick I almost laughed. Independence? I repeated. Like when you stole my college fund? Or when you forged Mom's signature to access her family property? That kind of independence? I built everything we had, he yelled. Your mother was a teacher making $40,000 a year. Without me, you'd have grown up in some depressing apartment. Without you, I corrected, Mom would have had her family's wealth, her inheritance, and her life insurance to support us. More than enough. Dad's face contorted. What do you want, Althea? Money? Is that it? Because there isn't any left to give you. I stood, gathering my folder. I don't want anything from you. I just came to answer your emergency call. And now I have. As I turned to leave, he grabbed my arm. You can't just walk away from this. We're family. I looked pointedly at his hand until he released me. Family doesn't put family's belongings in garbage bags. Family doesn't steal from family. You made your choice on graduation day. I'm just honoring it. Please, Iris said suddenly. We have nowhere to go if we lose the house. The same words I could have spoken 3 months ago if not for my mother's foresight. The symmetry was almost poetic. I'm sure you'll figure something out, I replied. You're both adults, after all. At the door, I paused. By the way, there's a mandatory financial disclosure meeting with the prosecutor's office next Tuesday. You might want to bring legal representation. The silence behind me was deafening. I walked to my car without looking back, a strange lightness in my chest. Not happiness, something more complex. The feeling of a long-carried weight finally set down. My phone buzzed with a text as I pulled away from the curb. A number I didn't recognize. This is Iris, using my old phone. We need to talk privately. Devin isn't who you think he is. I smiled faintly. The first crack in their united front? Right on schedule. 2 days later, I met Iris at a coffee shop downtown. She looked even worse than before, hair pulled back carelessly, dark circles prominent under her eyes. Thank you for coming, she said, hands wrapped tightly around her mug. I didn't know who else to turn to. What did you want to discuss? I kept my tone neutral. She glanced around nervously. I think Devin has been lying to me from the beginning. About everything. The business investments, your mother's consent, all of it. I waited silently. After you left, we had a huge fight. I asked him about the forged signatures, and he didn't deny it. He just said, everybody cuts corners sometimes. Her voice cracked. I found papers in his office safe. Accounts I never knew about. Property deeds in Panama. And this surprises you? I asked quietly. I thought we were building something together, she whispered. I invested everything I had in our future. My savings, my inheritance from my grandmother, everything, and now it's gone. A tear slid down her cheek. The prosecutor called yesterday. They're considering criminal charges, Althea. Actual fraud charges. I could lose my real estate license permanently. I studied her, searching for manipulation, finding only genuine fear. What do you want from me, Iris? Help, she said simply. I'll testify against Devin. Tell them everything I know. But I need immunity. And somewhere to go after. This was unexpected, a twist I hadn't anticipated. For a moment, I considered the possibility of allying with Iris against my father. It would certainly expedite the legal proceedings. I'll think about it, I said finally. But I need something from you first. Anything, she agreed quickly. The truth about my mother's final months. All of it. Iris paled. Althea, some things are better left. That's my price, I cut in. Take it or leave it. She stared into her coffee for a long moment. Your father, he delayed some of her treatments, said the insurance was processing claims, but really he was diverting the funds. And the experimental treatment her doctor wanted to try? Devin never even submitted the paperwork. A cold numbness spread through me. Even though I'd suspected something like this from the financial records, hearing it confirmed was different. Why? I whispered. Iris couldn't meet my eyes. He told me her prognosis was hopeless anyway, that the money would be better used securing our future. Our future, I repeated. Not mine. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't know then what I know now. I stood, gathering my coat. I'll contact you in 3 days about the prosecutor. Don't tell my father about this meeting. Her hand shot out, grabbing mine. Please don't leave me with nothing, Althea. I know I wasn't the stepmother you deserved, but I'm begging you. I gently extracted my hand. 3 days, Iris. Make sure your information is worth my help. As I walked away, my phone buzzed with another text. From my father this time. We need to meet. I know Iris contacted you. Don't believe her lies. I can explain everything. The game was shifting faster than I'd anticipated. I texted back. Tomorrow, noon. The park bench where Mom used to read to me. His response came immediately. I'll be there. That night, I opened the final folder on my mother's USB drive, the one labeled Contingencies. Inside was a document titled, If All Else Fails, with detailed instructions and contact information for a private investigator who had apparently been gathering evidence against my father for years. At the bottom was a note in my mother's handwriting. Althea, Revenge is a poison that harms the vessel that carries it. Whatever you decide, choose healing over hatred. That's why I gave you your name. With all my love, Mom. I sat back, tears finally coming. Even now, 5 years gone, she was trying to protect me, not just from my father's actions, but from my own potential for bitterness. The next morning dawned clear and cold. I arrived at the park 20 minutes early, watching dog walkers and joggers circle the small lake. This bench had been our special place. Mom would bring a new book every Sunday, reading stories that transported us to other worlds while ducks paddled nearby. At precisely noon, my father approached, looking more composed than during our last meeting. He'd shaved, changed into a crisp button-down shirt, regained some of his customary confidence. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, sitting beside me but maintaining distance. "What did you want to discuss?" He sighed heavily. "Iris is spinning tales to save herself. You need to understand that. She was the one who pushed for the riskier investments, who wanted to use your mother's assets aggressively. Is that why you forged Mom's signature while she was dying? Because Iris made you do it?" His jaw tightened. "Business sometimes requires difficult decisions. Your mother was never interested in financial matters. She would have squandered everything on books and lost causes." "Like my college education?" I asked quietly. "You got scholarships," he countered. "The money went to better use elsewhere. My future wasn't worth investing in?" Something flickered in his eyes. Not guilt, but annoyance at being questioned. "I've always looked out for this family," he insisted. "Everything I did was to secure our position. The market turned against us. That's all. I studied the man beside me, my father in biology only. What do you want from me, Dad? Really?" He leaned forward, voice dropping. "The trust fund your mother set up. It's the key to everything. With those assets, I can negotiate with the mortgage company, hold off the prosecutors long enough to move some other investments around. And then what? You and Iris ride off into the sunset with what's left of Mom's money? Don't be dramatic," he snapped. "I'm trying to save our family home. Your home. You put my belongings in garbage bags," I reminded him. "You made it very clear that wasn't my home anymore." His expression softened, a calculated shift. "I was wrong. We both were. We were stressed about finances and took it out on you. Come home, Althea. We can be a family again." For a brief moment, I glimpsed the father I'd once adored. Charming, persuasive, seemingly sincere. The man who had carried me on his shoulders at the state fair, who had cheered at my elementary school plays. The flicker of memory almost made me waver. Almost. "I need time to think," I said finally. Hope brightened his face. "Of course. Take all the time you need. Just, the bank deadline is in 25 days, and the prosecutor wants to meet next week." I nodded. "I'll be in touch." As I walked away, I felt his eyes on my back, calculating, measuring, planning his next move. The game wasn't over yet. In fact, the most crucial play was still to come. 3 days later, exactly 7 months and 2 weeks after finding my belongings in garbage bags, I made a series of phone calls. To Iris, to my father, to my mother's lawyer, and finally, to the prosecutor's office. Everything was set in motion. Now I just had to wait for all the pieces to align perfectly. The day of reckoning arrived with unexpected sunlight, warming the first spring flowers pushing through the soil. I dressed carefully in a blue suit my mother had always said brought out my eyes. Professional, composed, unmovable. Today, after months of careful preparation, I would finally answer the question that had haunted me since graduation day. How do you respond when the people who should protect you instead try to destroy you? The courthouse conference room felt smaller than I expected. A long table dominated the center, windows overlooking the city park where my mother and I had once read stories together. I arrived first, arranging 5 folders at precise intervals along the table. The prosecutor entered next, Eleni Kazan, a woman with calm eyes and a reputation for thoroughness. We'd spoken several times over the past week, but this was our first in-person meeting. "Everything's in order," she confirmed quietly. "Are you certain about this approach? Once we start, there's no going back." "I'm certain," I replied, straightening the edge of a folder. My father arrived precisely on time, his attorney, a nervous man with thinning hair, trailing behind him. Dad wore his court suit, the one reserved for important business meetings. His confident smile faltered when he saw the prosecutor, then recovered quickly. Quite a formal setting for a family discussion, he remarked, taking a seat across from me. Iris arrived last, alone and visibly anxious. She'd chosen a subdued outfit, all traces of her former polished appearance gone. Her eyes darted between my father and me before she slid into a chair at the far end of the table. "Let's begin," Eleni said, opening her leather portfolio. "We're here to discuss the financial fraud investigation concerning Devin Winters and potentially Iris Winters." My father's attorney leaned forward. "My client maintains his innocence and believes this is all a misunderstanding that—" "Actually," I interrupted gently, "we're here because I requested this meeting." Dad's eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" I opened the center folder and removed a single document. "This is a complete confession from Iris, detailing every fraudulent transaction, every forged signature, and every misappropriated fund over the past 6 years." Iris paled as my father turned to her, betrayal written across his face. "You—" "In exchange for her testimony," I continued, "the prosecutor's office has offered Iris partial immunity. She'll lose her real estate license and face probation, but no jail time." "You little—" Dad started toward Iris, but his lawyer grabbed his arm. "There's more," I said, opening another folder. "This contains bank records showing you delayed payment for Mom's medical treatments while simultaneously transferring funds to offshore accounts. The experimental treatment that might have extended her life by years? You claimed the insurance denied it. That was a lie." The room went utterly silent. Even his lawyer looked shocked. "That's speculation," Dad finally managed. "No," Eleni interjected. "We verified the timeline with her oncologist. The treatment was approved. You intercepted the notification and never informed the medical team to proceed." Something broke in my father then. Not remorse. Something colder and more calculating. He looked at me with eyes I'd never truly seen before. "What do you want?" he asked flatly. "Money? The house? Name your price to make this go away." I closed the folders and folded my hands. "I don't want anything from you. That's what you never understood. Mom left me everything I needed. Not just the trust fund you've been so desperate to access, but something far more valuable. She left me truth." "Then why are we here?" he demanded. "Because I wanted to see your face," I said quietly. "When you realized you'd lost everything, just like you planned for me to lose everything. The difference is, I didn't cause your downfall. You did that yourself." I stood, gathering my belongings. "The prosecutor has enough evidence for a conviction. Iris's testimony is just a bonus. The accounts Mom documented, they've been frozen permanently. The property in Panama? Seized. The house goes to auction next week." "You can't just walk away," he sputtered. "I'm your father." "No," I corrected him. "You're the man who married my mother, stole her money, contributed to her death, and then threw my belongings into garbage bags. Biology doesn't make you family. Love does. And you have none to give." As I reached the door, I turned back one last time. Mom named me Althea because it means with healing power. She believed names should give us something to live up to. It took me 7 months to understand that my healing couldn't come from hurting you. It could only come from justice. That's the difference between revenge and restoration. I left the conference room with steady steps, hearing my father's angry protests fade behind me. Outside, spring sunshine warmed my face as I walked to my car. My phone buzzed with a text from my book club. "Still joining us tonight? We're discussing The Count of Monte Cristo." I smiled as I texted back. Wouldn't miss it. That evening, as I sat among new friends discussing literature's most famous revenge tale, I thought about choices. My father had chosen greed over family. Iris had chosen security over integrity. My mother, even dying, had chosen to protect me with truth rather than shelter me with lies. And I had chosen to use that truth not for vengeance, but for justice. The money recovered from my father's schemes wouldn't bring my mother back, but it would fund scholarships for students who lost parents to cancer, a foundation established in Lynn Winter's name. Sometimes the most powerful response to cruelty isn't more cruelty. It's creating something beautiful from the ashes. That's what my mother taught me. That's the story I chose to write. If you've ever faced betrayal from those who should have protected you, know that you're not alone. Your story matters. The way you respond to pain shapes who you become. Choose healing over hatred. Choose creation over destruction. Choose your own path forward. Like, subscribe, and share if this story touched you. Your comments help others find these messages when they need them most. And remember, the ending of your story is still unwritten. Make it a good one.